Welcome back. I'm doing chapter 25 today, The Life and Times of Queen Trollbella, written and directed by Trollbella. Dr. Sharon Jackson had been the resident clinical psychologist at St. Andrew's Children's Hospital for over 2 decades, and today she was facing the most difficult patients of her career. 4 stubborn teenage girls sat across from her with their arms folded. They each wore the same hospital gown and the same defiant expression. Unbeknownst to the girls, their worried parents were watching them through the mirror on the wall. "Hello, ladies," Dr. Jackson said. "My name is Dr. Sharon Jackson, and I'm a psychologist here at St. Andrew's. I've been asked to have a word with you. How are you all feeling today?" "Don't answer any of her questions," Mindy told her fellow book huggers. "The less we say, the less they can use against us." "I promise you, we're only trying to take care of you," Dr. Jackson said. "Do you remember why you were brought to the hospital?" Cindy tilted her head in suspicion. "Were we brought to the hospital or were we sent to the hospital?" she asked. "Well, you were brought to the hospital by an ambulance," Dr. Jackson said. "And it was sent here because all 4 of you were found unconscious on the sidewalk. Does that answer your question?" The book huggers shared a look. Their newest suspicion had been all but confirmed. "Do you work for them?" Lindy asked. "For who?" Dr. Jackson asked. "The people who don't want us knowing what we know," Mindy said. "What do you know?" Dr. Jackson asked. "And who doesn't want you knowing it?" The book huggers could tell that the psychologist was genuinely confused. Perhaps she wasn't as informed as they thought. "Maybe it's best if we don't tell you," Lindy said. "They might lock you up next." "We've been here for 3 days, but they can't keep us here forever," Cindy said. "We know our rights," Mindy said. Wendy leaped out of her chair and went to the door. She yanked on the handle with all her might, but the door didn't budge. "Mrs. Takahashi, if you would like to leave, just push the door open," Dr. Jackson said. "No one is keeping you here against your will." Wendy turned the door handle and pushed it open easily. She blushed and took her seat. "Prisoners or not, we know that someone very high up doesn't want us spreading the facts," Cindy said. "That's the real reason we're here." "I'm glad you brought that up," Dr. Jackson said. "I think it would do us all some good if we go over the facts together and take a break from suspicions." Dr. Jackson went down the list on her notepad, hoping it would comfort the girls if she put things into perspective. "You were found unconscious. That's a fact," the psychologist listed. "Just like any young person found in your condition, you were brought to the hospital to be examined. That is also a fact. When you regained consciousness, you told the doctors that you had seen pirates appear out of thin air, and you had overheard a discussion about recruiting armies of fictional characters and a threatening fairy tale world." "Yes," Mindy said, "because we did." "Why do you think we fainted in the first place?" Cindy said. "That aside, usually when parties wake up from a trauma and describe such eccentric events, I'm asked to have a word with them just to make sure that there aren't any psychological damage," Dr. Jackson explained. "This is all standard procedure, and I assure you that no one up high has any control over you." The book huggers slumped in their chairs. Given the circumstances, perhaps the psychologist had been brought in for legitimate reasons. Maybe it wasn't part of a big conspiracy against them like they thought. "We're just so tired of being told we're wrong when we know we're right," Mindy said. "It's very unlikely 4 different people would have the exact same hallucination at once," Cindy said. "But no one will listen to us," Lindy said. "Every time we try to tell someone what we've uncovered, they either hang up, point to the door, or threaten restraining orders." The book huggers were getting worked up. Dr. Jackson raised her hands to calm them down. "Ladies, it's my job to listen," Dr. Jackson said. "Tell me what you saw, what you heard, and what you're worried about. I'll be honest about what I believe is real or exaggerated, but I'll also be open-minded." The book huggers eyed one another apprehensively. Dr. Jackson was the first person to have shown interest willingly. She took vigorous notes as the teenagers explained the cause of their paranoia. "It started in junior high," Mindy said. "Alex and Connor Bailey disappeared without a trace, and no one could give us any good reason why. We wanted to know the truth, but the more answers we looked for, the more questions we found. It seemed to be that there was only something in our school, our city, and possibly the government that was keeping it from us," Cindy said. "Finally, after a year of searching, we saw the twins in a restaurant called the Storybook Grill 4 days ago. We heard them talking about recruiting armies of fictional characters to save a fairy tale world," Lindy said. "It confirmed all our suspicions that something much deeper was going on. That's when we snuck to their house, peered through the window, and saw the pirates and their ship appear out of thin air." To their surprise, Dr. Jackson was relieved to hear this. She set her notes aside and a big smile came to her face. She even gave a thumbs up to the mirror, which the book huggers thought was very odd. "Ladies, I have good news for you," the psychologist said. "I believe every word you just said." The book huggers were shocked. They had never heard those words come out of someone's mouth before. For a second, they thought Dr. Jackson, not the pirates at the twins' house, might be a hallucination. "You believe us?" Cindy said. "Absolutely," Dr. Jackson said. "You aren't experiencing delusions or hallucinations. You're suffering from a simple misunderstanding. You see, the twins' mother and stepfather work at this hospital. As a surprise, they hired a group of entertainers to perform for the patients in a show. The pirates you saw at their house are just performers, and the ship was probably a set." "A set piece?" Lindy asked. "But it appeared out of thin air." "Haven't you ever seen a magician or a Broadway show?" Dr. Jackson said. "That's what good set pieces do. It's all part of an illusion." The book huggers shook their heads and covered their ears. They didn't want to believe what the psychologist was telling them. It was just too simple. "No," Mindy said, "that can't be it. There has to be more to the story than that." "I understand your confusion," Dr. Jackson said. "I met the performers yesterday. Their costumes were so colorful and elaborate. Had Mrs. Gordon not explained to me who they were, I might have been just as puzzled as you were." "But that doesn't explain the conversation we heard over at dinner," Cindy said. "Why would they say things like recruiting armies to save a threatened fairy tale world? Those aren't words normal people use to describe a show." "I imagine they were using code words to keep the performance a secret," Dr. Jackson proposed. "I'm sure it took them a very long time to put it together and they were being extra cautious. This is a small town. People talk and clearly people listen." The book huggers had put so much time and effort into tracking down and exposing the Baileys that it could have been all for just a performance. They were intelligent girls. They would have spotted a misunderstanding from a mile away. The teenagers rocked in their seats trying to think of where they went wrong. Dr. Jackson glanced up at the clock. "Actually, the performance is tonight," she said, "but if that's unsettling to you, I would recommend sitting it out. Now that we know you aren't suffering from any psychological damage, I recommend you all go home and get a good night's rest. Doctor's orders." Once the psychologist prescribed the troubled book huggers some sleep, she escorted the girls back to their parents and headed to the hospital's multi-purpose room. Thanks to the characters' hard work, Trollbella's thorough direction, and a little touch of Alex's magic, they had put together a performance for St. Andrew's Children's Hospital in just under a day. The quality of it was questionable, but it was a performance nonetheless. The tedious and frantic task had created a much-needed union among the characters and taught them to work together, which was necessary if they planned on joining forces to defeat the literary army. The Pirates of the Dalai Lama and the Tin Woodman constructed a large stage with red velvet curtains on the far end of the multi-purpose room. The sailors set up chairs and made sure every patient, their families, and all the hospital employees had a seat. The cyborg soldiers were hung from the ceiling and their illuminated body parts were pointed toward the stage like lights. The cyborg queen herself converted into a large spotlight and was operated by Commander Neuters. Instead of using the hospital's electricity, all the cyborgs were hooked up to Bolt, who functioned like a human generator. The other siblings were working behind the scenes. After Morph assisted with costumes by turning into a sewing machine, the shapeshifter transformed into a set. Since Whitney had the most dexterity, she was put in charge of props. Blaze was assigned special effects, and it was the easiest job in the entire show since there was only one at the very end. Trollbella insisted the performance have programs so the audience would have something tangible to take away. Bob helped her design the exact flyer she had in mind, and one was laid in every seat. The program read, Dr. Bob and Nurse Charlotte proudly present a Trollbella production, The Life and Times of Queen Trollbella, written and directed by Trollbella, starring Trollbella and friends. Around 15 minutes to 8, the multipurpose room began filling with an eager audience. Doctors, nurses, and other hospital staff escorted the patients and their families to their seats. Some children were rolled in and on wheelchairs or transported in their hospital beds. Although the children weren't feeling their best, they looked around the room keenly, curious about what was waiting for them on the other side of the curtain. Alex and Bob were sitting together in the front row. Alex couldn't sit still and nervously shook her legs a bit and bit her nails. "Are you worried about the show?" Bob asked. "Not the show," she said. "I'm worried about Connor and Mom. I was expecting them to be back by now." Bob laughed. "You look just like your mother when she's worried about you and your brother," he said. "Now that I know how it feels, I'm never going to keep her waiting again," Alex said. "I hope they're all right. It's not that I don't trust them or that I think they need me. It's just... Alex couldn't think of the words to describe the feeling. You just love them, Alex, Bob said. It's as simple as that. To Alex's relief, just a few minutes before the performance started, Connor and Charlotte hurried into the multi-purpose room and found her and Bob in the front. They had come straight from the adventures of Blimp Boy, and Connor hadn't even had a chance to take off his backpack. Well, Alex asked, how did it go? Did you find the talisman? Connor and Charlotte exchanged a smile. Connor pulled the talisman from underneath his shirt and showed his sister. Let's just say there's a blimp parked in the field next to the hospital, and there are 1,000 mummified soldiers and 1 mummified dog in the commissary, Connor said. So it's done, Alex said. We've recruited all the soldiers we need to take on the literary army. The twins were so thankful the recruitment was finally over. They couldn't have done it without the help of their mom and stepdad, so they pulled Bob and Charlotte into a tight family hug. It may not have been the family vacation their mom was hoping for, but the twins and their parents had accomplished something extraordinary together. Bob noticed a foul scent lingering around Connor and Charlotte. What's that smell? He asked. Mummies, Charlotte said. I spray each with perfume and disinfectant, but the decay isn't an easy odor to take off. Should we tell the others before or after the performance? Connor said. Let's wait, Alex said. If they pull off the performance, we'll have 2 miracles to celebrate. Is it any good? Connor asked. Alex hesitated to answer. Let's just say it probably won't be your favorite show, she said. Trollbella took some liberties. And I'm going to stop there and I'll continue the second half of the chapter in the next video. I'll see you guys then.